Hello folks, Northwest Saws here, and in this video I'm going to be installing a connecting rod and all the needle rollers back onto a Homelite 775D chainsaw. I do want to point out that this method I'm going to use is not just limited to Homelite chainsaws. You could do it on several different makes that have a connecting rod with a disconnectable cap. The purpose of this video is to show you all how I go about this process, a little trick that I use, and maybe this will help somebody. And maybe there might even be a couple folks, a few, that have a pointer or two for me. So, I've gotten started on this already, but I'll show you what's going on here. This is the cap. We've got a nice coating of somewhat thick bearing grease on the surface of this cap. I'm taking all of our needle rollers and just cemented them in place. Okay, that thick grease is holding them there. They're not going anywhere. The same thing with this connecting rod. They're just all cemented in there, good to go. This is a new old stock connecting rod with the new bearing already pressed in there. So I'm going to put this camera down. Up, I guess, whatever. I'll show you how I go about this. Okay, one thing that's kind of important to note with these is the connecting rod and the cap have some fracture lines, some grooves here. Hopefully you could see them. And this cap and this rod need to be put together correctly. These fracture lines oriented correctly so they mate together properly. You can't just toss this in here and hope it'll be good to go. You gotta assemble them the right way, or else when you tighten this down, it's not going to tighten all the way. And if you do try to assemble everything and you try to start it, it's not going to rotate, or you might end up breaking something too. So, and there was about 31 needle rollers on this, which is quite a few to lose. Which is where having this thick grease is kind of important. So before I put this cap in here and we start tightening up everything, getting it installed, something that I like to do is take a little rag. I've shoved it in through the port where the reed assembly is, and this rag just stepped in this crankcase here, and it's almost resting right up under the crank lobe here. And so when I put this cap in, that rag will support it. I shouldn't have to be doing a whole lot of messing around with it. Okay, so I'll just double check here that we've got all of our needle rollers in place. And we're looking pretty good there. So I'm just going to put this right in here. Sometimes you got to adjust the rag. Well, that ended up being perfect. So that's in there. Maybe you can see that. That rag is supporting the cap perfectly. And sometimes if you get a little movement on here, you can kind of prop this rag up a little bit if you need to with a tool. Okay, so it's one thing that is kind of important to make sure that you don't have any part of the rag stuck into where these mating surfaces are. So you don't really want that hanging around. Okay. Alright, so we'll double check our needle rollers on the connecting rod here, make sure they're all good to go. Okay. Alright, I'm going to have to flip this around just a little bit here to get this to fit properly. make sure that we're not interfering with anything. Okay, so I've got this resting on the lobe of the crank. It's also resting against the surface of the cap here. And it's not pushing down on that cap hardly at all. So, we'll just take our screw here. And there we go. That side is tightened down. So next thing we got to do here is come double check and make sure that we got this assembled the right way. And all of our surfaces are mating up on this side the way they're supposed to. So we'll take our other screw and put that in there. Okay. Double check this again. Okay. That looks good. And now that I'm done, everything is connected, I can take my rag out. And that's it. It's a pretty simple and easy way to get the job done. You can see that rag a little bit better. It's stuffed in through where the reed assembly goes. Pretty simple. One of the key things though is getting a thick grease and making sure that those needle rollers are not going anywhere. That grease it's paramount to getting this job done. And hopefully you could see when I was putting this in here that I didn't have hardly any movement on those needle rollers. They didn't move hardly at all. And when we go to clean some of this stuff up and torque these bolts down, we'll double check and make sure there's nothing missing in there. But that's pretty much it. And one thing to note is that you can take some carb cleaner if you want, and you could spray in here to get all this grease out if you want. I didn't use that much grease. Or if you don't want to do that, then don't. Let the gas run it all out. It's really not going to hurt anything that much unless you use an ungodly amount of grease, which you don't need to. At least I don't think you need to. Anyway. Well, that's it. That's a little trick that I use. If you have any comments, good, bad, whatever, please leave them. Get a hold of me anytime. Thanks for watching.